Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild, a set of fascinating, completely hidden trade-offs that govern the complex systems we rely on every single day. From the microscopic cells in your body to the massive power grids lighting up your home, we're going to uncover the invisible architecture of vulnerability.
Think about it for a second. Why is it that systems that seem totally invincible, like the global internet or even our very own immune systems, why do they sometimes collapse spectacularly from the tiniest, unforeseen errors? It's this shared, robust yet fragile mystery that actually bridges biology, engineering, and economics. And I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to look at the world completely differently.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the fragility spectrum, highly optimized tolerance, the paradox of robustness, biology and the immune system, engineering and the internet, and finally, economics and thriving in chaos. All right, part one. The fragility spectrum. Let's look at how systems actually handle stress.
Starting on one end, we've got fragility. The fragile system is exactly what it sounds like. It breaks or degrades when exposed to stress, volatility, or randomness. Think of a glass teacup dropping on a hard tile floor. It really doesn't like shocks.
Now, sitting right in the middle, we have robustness. Unlike that fragile teacup, a robust system resists shocks, withstands stress, and remains completely unchanged. It's designed to take a hit and keep right on ticking. Kind of like a thick steel safe. It absorbs the blow, sure, but it doesn't fundamentally alter its state.
But then, on the far end of the spectrum, things get really interesting. We have this wild concept coined by Nassim Nicholas Taleb called anti-fragility. An anti-fragile system actually thrives, improves, and gets stronger when subjected to volatility and stress. It goes way beyond just bouncing back, because it uses the stress as fuel. Human muscle tissue is a perfect example of this. You stress it at the gym, tear it down, and it actually grows back stronger.
Moving to part two, highly optimized tolerance. This is all about the trade-off between performance and vulnerability.
So there's this really fascinating contrast between highly optimized tolerance, we'll just call it HOT, and an older physics concept called self-organized criticality. For a long time, scientists thought complex systems just naturally sort of emerged into critical states, like a random pile of sand where one grain causes a whole avalanche. But real-world systems aren't random sand piles, right? They're intentionally designed. HOT shows us that when a system is highly optimized for efficiency against known risks, that very design creates a hypersensitivity to unanticipated flaws. Basically, you're trading general resilience for specialized performance.
To really wrap our heads around this HOT concept, think about the fire break analogy. Imagine a forester who's trying to maximize timber yield while preventing fires. They build these massive fire breaks, cleared lines of land in areas where fires are most likely to happen. This makes the whole forest incredibly robust to expected, everyday fires. But what happens if a fire sparks in a totally unexpected spot, or the wind suddenly shifts direction? The system has zero defenses there. By concentrating all those resources on known risks, the forest becomes devastatingly vulnerable to rare massive events.
Which brings us to part three, the paradox of robustness, or what happens when protection actually causes decay. This paradox kicks in when high-level, system-wide protections essentially let the individual smaller components get a little lazy. In biology, if a system has multiple buffering layers, the individual parts don't face direct evolutionary pressure to be perfect, which leads to component decay. Over in engineering, with power networks, engineers might add extra transmission links just to make the grid more robust. But paradoxically, this overwiring can decrease the system's tolerance to cascading failures. Sometimes, adding a protective link makes the entire network significantly more fragile.
So, it begs the question, right? If the overall system is so tough, why do the parts inside it fall apart? Well, the answer is that the parts simply no longer need to be perfect. The overarching protection acts as a massive safety net, which inadvertently removes the pressure that kept those parts sharp in the first place.
Let's look at a real-world example in part four, biology, specifically our immune system and the heavy cost of memory. Imagine stepping into the internal shape space of the human immune system. When you're young, your immune system is populated by random, naive cells. They aren't specialized at all, but they are incredibly diverse, ready to detect almost any completely new, unforeseen pathogen. However, after a lifetime of infections, those naive cells are largely replaced by highly specialized memory cells. The system is learned, and it's adapted. Now, this constant adapting leads to something called immunosenescence.
The immune system becomes expertly tuned to the history of your past exposures, which allows for a rapid, powerful response to infections you've seen before. It becomes incredibly robust to common diseases. But because your total number of cells is limited, growing that specialized memory cell population actively shrinks your diverse, naive cell population. The paradoxical result here? As we age, our highly optimized immune system develops an extreme fragility to rare, novel pathogens. The system's own superpower, its adaptation mechanism, creates its ultimate vulnerability.
All right, part 5 shifts to engineering, the internet, and the grand illusion of a self-organizing network. You know, a lot of people just assume the internet is this organic, magical web that organizes itself. The reality is entirely different. The internet relies on highly sophisticated, engineered, multi-layer protocols like TCP/IP that were literally built over decades to survive deliberate attacks. It routes around damage seamlessly, making it astoundingly robust to massive traffic spikes or, say, a severed physical cable. But true to the hot framework we discussed, this complexity is hidden behind an illusion of simplicity, which breeds a brand new fragility, hypersensitivity to software bugs. Common mode software errors, like that faulty modern security update you inevitably click Remind Me Tomorrow on, can crash massive portions of this invincible network instantly. It is incredibly robust to physical loss, but wildly fragile to software flaws.
And finally, part 6, economics, thriving in chaos and specifically looking at anti-fragility in renewable energy markets.
Before we dive into the market data, let's totally reset our mental model with this quote again from Nassim Nicholas Taleb. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. Keep that exact idea in mind as we watch how certain markets respond to complete political chaos.
Let's apply this to the U.S. renewable energy sector. Recently, the industry was hit with a massive policy shock, the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, or OBB, which brought severe rollbacks to renewable subsidies. Now, normally you'd expect this stress to seriously damage the industry, but looking strictly at the market data, this volatility actually acted as a stressor that forced adaptation. The threat of losing federal tax credits removed artificial safety nets, which forced companies into adaptive behaviors, streamlining their operations and doing rapid scaling they probably wouldn't have pursued otherwise. It is a textbook example of an anti-fragile market. The industry isn't just surviving the chaos of the policy shift, it's fundamentally improving and scaling way more rapidly because of the stress.
Which leads us to the conclusion: the invisible trade-offs all around us.
If you take away just one core lesson from this explainer today, it's these 3 steps right here. First, complex systems, whether they're designed by engineers or evolved by nature, always optimize for the uncertainties they already know about. Second, as they build system-level protections, they inadvertently allow their individual components to decay. And third, this pursuit of robustness inevitably breeds hidden, catastrophic fragilities to the unexpected. Highly optimized tolerance means there is literally no free lunch in complex systems.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Look around at the systems you rely on daily. Your company, your investments, your community, your very own health. Are they truly robust, or are they just highly optimized for a world that might suddenly change? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the structure of the world around you, and I'll catch you next time.